Welcome to Studio Snack. I'm Lydia Thornley, a designer, illustrator, visual artist and reliably terrible at any sport you care to mention.
And I'm Narciso Uleda, a brand specialist, and I'm just gonna say runner and triathlete. It sounds a bit pretentious because I just do it for fun.
And why are we mentioning sport? Well, you can't get away from it in summer, so here we are with sporting snacks. The first thing that popped into my head was sports biscuits made by the same company as malted milk. Listeners who've been listening to us since the beginning will appreciate the herd of cows made by Narcissus for an earlier episode.
Classic.
And they're very much a 1970s thing. They were discontinued in 2023 when Fox's was taken over by Ferrero, and there was uproar. There was even a petition. Aldi and Elk saved them also in farm foods, so should you suddenly have an urgent need for a sports biscuit, go and spectate in those stores until you find some. Narcissus, you went for proper technical sporting snacks, didn't you?
I just decided to go on the other side of the sport and thought, what is that athletes eat? So there's quite a lot of boring things like high-tech gels, granola bars, energy balls. But what was more interesting was like on mundane things like bananas, porridge, peanut butter. One of the things that I really love that is possibly the least technical but is actually a proper cult on runners is jelly babies.
Yay.
On the Hackney Half Marathon, which I've done a few times, you always see kids giving you jelly babies, and it's also like a thing that you see the athletes or the runners carrying them as well. I think it's quite cool. I also went and tried to find some eccentricities from athletes. I found a couple that they were quite interesting. Usain Bolt eats McDonald's chicken nuggets. Yuck.
Weird.
But Venus Williams eats raw eggs.
Raw eggs?
Yes.
Blimey.
Which it's a bit dangerous if you get salmonella in the middle of the match. With all this talking, I'm getting hungry for some nerdery. Lydia, what do you have?
Well, interestingly, cricket is the only sport that stops for tea. They've been a source of pride for host clubs, and though they seem as English as it's possible to be, the first record of them was actually in Australia in the 1880s. There is much talk about cricket teas in Yorkshire, it seems. There is even a Tea of the Year competition. Some clubs go beyond sandwiches and cakes to provide for dietary and cultural needs, but not every club has them these days, sometimes because of cost, sometimes to ring the changes. Pizza vans are becoming increasingly popular. Onward to tennis, strawberries and cream. When were they first served at Wimbledon? Well, right from the start, it seems, when strawberries were seasonal, available only for a few weeks of the year, and they happened to coincide with when it was on. The BBC reports that about 28,000 kilos are eaten on average. That's even more than I eat in the summer, with about 7,000 litres of cream.
That's about the same. I eat some.
I remember orange slices being a thing in netball. They're common across junior sport, hydration and a quick energy boost, I presume. But the sugar in it got it banned in Australia. This, by the way, suggests that I like netball. For the record, I was the person nobody wanted in their team. Thrown at the unlucky side as goalkeeper solely on account of my height, I don't think I was wildly useful.
Aww.
But what about snacks served at sporting fixtures? America seems to be big on oddities here. Dessert nachos in Colorado, cotton candy burritos.
How does it work?
No idea. Pizza burger, I can feel my arteries hardening. And strawberry cheesecake dessert pretzel, though to be fair, I would really like to try one of those.
Yeah, that one sounds quite nice.
Also, some respect to Taipei for stinky tofu.
Yuck.
Made with fermented milk.
Rank.
My Googling also took me to eccentric British sports involving snacks, and why not? We love a diversion here at Studio Snacks. So, I bring you cheese rolling in Gloucestershire.
Okay.
Pea shooting, which has a world championship in Witcham, south of London. Black pudding throwing. I don't like black puddings, so throwing them seems a good thing to do with them to me. Pancake racing, of course. Or if you can't be bothered with making actual pancakes, try the World Egg Throwing Championships in Lincolnshire. The World Stinging Nettle Eating Championships in Dorset. Now, I should explain here that this isn't cooked nettles or nettle tea. This is raw nettles. Ow.
It sounds like dangerous sport, all this.
Yeah. So, eccentricities aside, what have we learnt for our design practice? I've found it interesting to learn how sporting snacks have evolved with scientific knowledge and cultural change. I think there are parallels for design in two ways. Adaptability is absolutely key to the creative skill set. That resilience, that problem solving is why creativity matters, whether or not you do what's regarded as a creative job. And when I design visual identities for clients, I design in the flexibility for them to evolve over time with the organisation, with its activities, with its audiences. And Narcis, you're a branding specialist with a particular interest in entrepreneurship, aren't you? Do you think that there are any parallels between sports nutrition and keeping a brand in shape?
Yeah, absolutely. There are many parallels. I actually use a lot of this analogy for articles and when I try to explain it to clients. I think one of the main things is that branding is not a sprint or even a triathlon. Branding is something that you do constantly as a runner would do constantly running, regardless whether he's got an event or not. And that also means that you have to nurture and ensure that it's always kept fed and in shape. And by saying that, it doesn't mean that sometimes things happen and you stop, you break your ankle and then you have to stop running. The same happens that sometimes you have to stop branding because you're too busy and you abandon it. But that means that you have to kind of get it back and constantly doing it.
And that's a learning exercise in itself, I think. I've often seen companies apologise to me for the fact they got in a mess, but it's the very fact they've got in a mess that's informative, and they can unpick it and see where they need to be.
Yeah, and I think the consistency, it's throughout time, not just in short periods.
Exactly.
So I think even though if you look at it from far away, you see it more easily than when you see in a particular moment. So I think feeding is important, and also testing things is important, but you wouldn't do it on an important time. For example, when you have a marathon, you're not gonna try a new gel or a new snack. You're just gonna do something that you know that works, and it's gonna not make you ill. And the same with branding. You can test things, but on the day of a launch or something, then maybe don't do experiments.
Exactly, and we use our creative experiments for Studio Snack as exactly that sort of playground. And for this month's creative experiment, we decided to invent a half-time snack for an obscure sport, and then we both reinvented the brief because we make the rules and we can break them.
Correct.
So what I did was an edible finish line of Welsh cakes for the World Bog Snorkeling Championships in Llanyertid Wells. Pause for a round of applause. Which I have long wanted to see, but despite the fact that my late parents lived only a few miles away, I still haven't. But I think it's a wonderful thing. So what I did was I made some Welsh cakes with holes in the middle for stringing and illustrated how they might be used. I say illustrated because I managed to make my Welsh cakes completely inedible. I don't know how I did this. I like Welsh cakes. I know how they should look. I know how they should taste. They were a disaster in every possible way. They looked like something from an archaeological dig. So if using them as a finish line, my advice is use proper ones made by someone who actually knows what they're doing. I did, though, also use the shape of these for this month's sound experiment. I found on the Google experiment platform a machine learning drum tool where I got it to trace my drawing of a Welsh cake with a hole in the middle, and then I punked it up a bit, and then I added some cymbal to make it sound as though somebody was splashing their way through a bog. Now this is me playing. A proper musician with proper kit would do something much more interesting, but it was just a really interesting exercise in thinking about how we might use sound to describe something as we would use visual things to describe things.
So interesting.
But I digress. Narcis, what have you made?
I went back to my story about the jelly babies because I eat five jelly babies. That's quite difficult to say. I eat 5 jelly babies every 45 minutes. That's kind of what works for me. So when it's a little bit fiddly to take them out of the wrappers or bags, so I thought, if I had them already handy, that would be quite cool. And that became, if I had them in my hand. So I asked AI to help me doing that, and it was a little bit of a disaster because it was like a hand with 6 fingers, well, including 2 thumbs. Quite disgusting.
It is very strange. We will put it on our Instagram feed.
And it used gummy bears instead of jelly babies. So anyway, so I went back to manual working, and I took a glove and sewn jelly babies in each finger, because it's five jelly babies for every 45 minutes. So it's kind of easy to eat them because the being sewn, it kind of breaks.
Pull them off, couldn't you? Yeah.
So I've got some photography, me running with that. It's not very hygienic, but it's fun.
Exactly. And we've given you your tongue twister for the month. I eat 5 jelly babies. Thank you for listening. Join us for another studio snack. Jelly baby?
Yes, please.
Bye.